says that this is to tell you how to live, and living with conflict is not very elegant, to say the least. So, to know yourself, we'll draw a little picture, and you can see how it works. First off, I'll tell you there's nothing wrong with anything on this picture. But when you try to do two things at one time from opposite directions, you get conflict. And conflict is words I hear most often in talking with people all over, is that they're in conflict. So we'll try to see how one gets in conflict, and then we'll see how to undo it, if you'll listen. Okay? If you'll listen, well, we'll try to get you where you don't have conflict. So the first thing we'll do is to draw a little up here. We've drawn this picture before, and we'll probably draw it many other times, who knows. But we'll put it like this. This is the physical body down here. We see those all over the place. We all have one. Kind of like it and get along with it and everything. Next one is awareness. We're all aware to a great degree that we know what's going on. We see people, we say hello to them, and what have you. And then there's something we don't see, but it's obviously there. It's called X, for lack of a better word. We put it there because we know it exists, but we don't know exactly what it is. But X is spirit in nature, and it takes care of the how. This takes care of the how, or the what. You say, well, I want to do so-and-so, and it takes care of the how. I don't know how to wiggle that finger, but I can say I want to wiggle the finger, and X wiggles it. So that's the way it goes on all over, whether it's wiggle a finger or do a big transaction or whatever, it takes care of it. So this would all work pretty well if it were like this, but it's not, because we made decisions along the way, and decision is the rule of attitude action from the moment it's made until it is reevaluated and unmade. So the first decision that we made was probably made in the process of being born. We were kind of kicked around a little bit, uncomfortable, sudden smoke, hard to get our breath, and all these things. So the first decision was that the purpose of living, a whole bit of it, living outside the uterine world, which was very comfortable. Here we got out in this world, and it wasn't so comfortable, and we were mistreated, spanked, and what have you. And so the person made a decision, the purpose of living, whole purpose of living, is to regain the non-disturbed state. First way, of course, is to have comfort and to escape all pain. We'll get the rest of them on there in a little bit. So that's quite all right. Nothing wrong with it. We just have that. Of course, it wants it right now, and they don't always have it right now. And sometimes it's 30 minutes before you get it. Sometimes it's a week more. But you can always be reasonably comfortable if you allow a little time to take place. But this says was to regain the non-disturbed state right now. So that was all right. And the next decision was made very shortly. We'll put number 1 on it. It is important to have my way right now. Now, it's quite all right to have your way. If you didn't make it right now, Sometimes it may take you a half a day to get your way. But you want it right now. So that makes kind of a conflict down there immediately, because you want it right now. But you can have it if you just take a little time and a little patience, an hour, 30 minutes, or a week, you can have your way. So there's nothing wrong in having your way. We all want it. We can't not want to have our way. You know, no matter how you work on it, you still want to have your way. Is that correct? You want to have your way. But you don't have to have it right now. So I will underscore this right now out here because it is, I'm going to draw a circle around. And it should be appeared right there. But we have that out there. So that's the only thing we have to give up is the right now part of it. The number 2 one was, it is important to stick up for my rights. Now, our rights are pretty much a moot question. We were born helpless, naked, didn't have anything, didn't even have clothes. And so really, what kind of rights do you have? You come into this world with nothing, you don't stick up for your rights because you don't have any, is that right? You have a lot of privileges, but you don't have any rights. So let's get that one straightened out, that I have lots of privileges. And the easiest way to lose a privilege is to mistake it for a right and start sticking up for it. That's the best way to lose your privilege. So I have lots of privileges. I have having food, clothing, shelter, transportation, friends, all sorts of things. That's all a privilege. But I don't have any rights. So now that you can stick up for your, you don't stick up for your privileges, you kind of earn them. You treat people nice, they'll treat you nice in return, generally speaking. You treat everything handily, and they treat you handily, and so forth. So I think we get along there. Now then, we got a little older, and we found other people around us and everything, and they began to get a little tired of our complaining because we wasn't having our way right now and sticking up for our rights, which we didn't have. And they started sticking up for their rights, which they didn't have either, but they were bigger than us, so they started sticking up for their rights and telling us that we didn't have they wanted to have their way right now, too. So we made another decision over here on the other side of the brain that said it's important to please them. Now that's a pretty commendable sort of thing. It's please people, all right? It doesn't cost you hardly to please them. But if you're doing this one and doing this one, you have conflict. And that is what the trouble runs into. Now, there's nothing wrong in trying to have your way. There is nothing wrong in sticking up for your privileges if you have them, you want to work for them, but you can't please everybody and have your way right now. You might have to delay your way for 20 minutes or so, who knows? Maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, who knows? Maybe a day. But if you try to have your way and please them at the same time, you are unmercifully busy. In fact, you are in great conflict. And this is what people complain most to me about, is I'm in conflict. Well, I try to get you down to look at this or this, but which one do you really want? You have one now and one a little later. You can please people if you don't try to go overboard for it. I say that if you treat other people with simple good manners, that's about all they really want. And treat them with simple good manners. And I'll get my way pretty quick. And I have no conflict. So there's nothing wrong with that. But we made conflict out of it because we wanted them both at the same time. So we divided this right down the middle. We now fragmented the awareness. We don't have it in one piece anymore. We fragmented it. Then, of course, we're taken down to see various and sundry authorities and officials. They show us the sheriff, you got to do what he says. And they show us policemen, you got to do what he says. Probably most people take their kids to church. And they got to believe what the preacher told them. And you have to go to school and you have to do what the teacher tells you and you have to believe what she tells you and so forth. So a decision comes up that it is important to believe and do what I am told by my authorities. Now, authorities are just humans. They have their ideas, and so they tell us one set of things. And maybe the school teacher tells you one thing, the preacher tells you another one, and the official tells you something else, okay? Now you're in conflict over that. What are you going to do to believe and do as you're told by your authorities? Now, everybody has a different authority. One person goes to one set of ecclesiastical authorities, another one goes to a different school, another one goes somewhere else. And you get conflict. Now, if you consider that there really is no authorities, there's officials, that's true, but there's no authorities. So you don't have to believe and do as you're told by these people. You consider, I am responsible for whatever I do, and I'm going to do what seems reasonable to me. But I'm responsible for whatever I do. So I can consider that and get it on straight. Okay? Don't have to get all agitated over it. Just do it. But if we're trying to do that and we're trying to stick up for my rights, which I want to do what I want to do without being responsible for it, and I want to do what the authorities told me because they told me there was great penalties for not doing it. Some of them now and some of them in the great hereafter and all that good stuff. So we have fears of not doing as we're told by authorities, but we want to stick up for our rights and do what I jolly well please without being responsible for it. Then we made another decision that said something like, it's important to improve myself. That's so we can get along better. Now, how are you going to improve yourself? Put on another head or another arm or something like that. I feel unprivileged because you don't have all those things. No. Improving self is kind of an illusion, but we always want to be more comfortable than we are. That's what we call improving ourselves. But we didn't look at all the things that were making us very uncomfortable. Then we finally come up with the real answer. That's if. That's the word, if. He, she, they, you were all different. You talked of you were all different. Then I'd be fine. So you sit down and be miserable because everybody is not different. They're what they are, no matter what. So they're not different. So now we can look at these, say we don't have to get rid of these conclusions. We have to reevaluate them a little bit so that they're livable. So purpose of living is not the whole purpose, but it is a purpose of living, is to be as reasonably comfortable as you can. So that's comfort and pain, and next kind of comfort as you get a little older is to have attention and to avoid being ignored. You just have rough and you ignore them. And the next one is that you want approval, and you want to escape all disapproval, and you want to feel important, and you want to feel, get over the feeling of non-importance or uselessness. People tell me they feel that they're not competent to do anything. Well, maybe they can't do some things, but they do a lot of things, but they've been there. Now let's reevaluate these basic decisions which every one of us is living by. That makes up the self. So it's not the whole purpose to be non-disturbed, but we would like to have as much non-disturbance as possible. Okay? I like comfort, I like attention, I like approval, and I would like to feel a little useful. I don't feel so important, but I like to feel a little useful in the world, so I look to see where that is. I don't like pain. I don't like to be ignored. I don't like to be disapproved of. And I don't like to feel useless. But I'm not useless. I look around. I have a certain amount of approval. I have a certain amount of being, I have some attention. You? And once in a while we have pain, but that just tells us we'll get all right. So we can reevaluate this, keep this decision, but we reevaluated something in the light of common sense, because we were infants and less than 5 minutes old when we made that decision, so we didn't have much experience. So now in the light of experience, we can remake this decision. We grew up, it's important to have my way, and we said right now. We don't, that's the way the kid made it when he was a few hours old, and we don't have to have right now, but we would like to have our way. It's not important, but it's important to have your way. But you don't have to make it like that now. The next one says it's important to stick up for my rights. We looked at that a minute ago. We really don't have any rights. We have lots of privileges, and we lose some of our privilege by sticking up for them, thinking they're rights and sticking up for them. We get all angry and agitated and everything like that. And it's important to please them. I don't have to please people, but I can give them treat them with simple good manners. That is, simple good manners. I treat them right that way. I think they mentioned that. I'm responsible to keep my wits about me and treat you with simple good manners. Okay? All right? You can treat everybody with simple good manners, and they don't like it very much. And we can say that it's important to not believe and do everything we're told by authority. We can check it out. We can check it out to some degree. The rest of it we can ignore, but we can treat the authority as though he were right. Do that. No problem at all. Yes, sir. I agree with you. I agree as though he's right. That keeps him happy. And you're going about your business. No? So, treat as though he's right. Okay? And when it's important to improve yourself, I look at that one and say, that's all right. I don't think there's great improvement in me, but I can develop myself. I can get a certain amount of worldly education and use it for that, and I can keep the body in reasonably good shape by doing minor exercises, not any big stuff, a little bit. And I walk around. And then it comes up, then that if he, she, they, and it, and everything else were all different, I'd just be fine. Well, people are not going to be different, and I'm going to be fine without them being different. It's like they are. So this is really a cheating way out, is to blame. So that's the whole blaming situation. Everybody's got somebody to blame for all their situations that they feel uncomfortable. And sometimes they go to such extremes with it that they're totally miserable because they're trying to get something different that's not different. The person is not going to be different from what you are right now. No matter how much I fret over it and see over it, but you're not going to be different than you are right now, right? You're what you are. So I can look at that with a big grain of salt, as they say, and let everybody be what they are. Now, I haven't had to give up any of these decisions. I have only reevaluated them in the light of experience. I really use the experience instead of just dumbly going on and using these as they were made, which are all unconscious, but they're the source of our motivation for our actions until we reevaluate. And instead of even reevaluate, there are things that needs to, I think, just modify them a little bit. And you could live quite peacefully with them, and you don't try to use two at one time. Just one at one time. Because that's what the two conflict you use two of. So, if you try to do that, you're going to get upset. So, now this is knowing the self. They're all here. They're in every one of us. We can look at them and reevaluate them. We're not going to have to unmake them and start out with a clean slate like you were just being born again. We're not going to do that. And, in fact, you would have to make very similar to the same ones if you were going to get along in the world, if you did. All right. So now then we can reevaluate all these decisions. They are sometimes called not I's because they act up and motivate us to do things that's not to our advantage. But if we just reevaluate it, for instance, that one I'll just leave off right now. That's all. I won't make it right now. I'm going to get my way, but a little while, give me a little time, I'll get it. And I'm going to take off if it's not important because I'm kind of, when I make anything important, I'm very anxious, so I don't make it important. But it's interesting to do, and it's an interesting way to work. And I'm not sticking up for my rights, but I'm going to, protect my future life. And it's not important to please people, but it is kind of worthwhile to treat them with simple good manners. That's good enough. This one here, I will consider what they told me, look it over, take my time. It's not important, but I'll look at it. So we can start living a very comfortable existence without conflict as soon as we reevaluate these basic decisions that everybody has. There's nothing wrong with them. They just weren't said exactly correct. Okay, so we reevaluate them and we'll put them up if you wanted to. I'll write them up the way they would look if you reevaluated them. But I just said it, so I'll write it down. Anyway, but it's just scratches. But there is the source of conflict and struggle in everyday existence, and you don't need it. You don't need to change these decisions or totally eliminate them. You need to reevaluate them a little bit and put them in proper perspective in light of experience. Okay? Now, that would take care of that arrangement for a bit, I think. Now, first off, is there any questions on it? I made it clear as mud, so let's see if you can ask questions on it. Okay? I like everybody to join in this stuff. A question?
Question that's come up a lot around me is, I'm making it important. How can I make it not important?
Just don't. You usually say the words, I'm not making it important, but you make it very important right here. So stop it here and don't say the words, okay?
And
It's
really,
just
the way out of that is to be free to experience whatever it is at that moment,
Well,
and you'll
sure.
get your way later.
Get your way in a few minutes, okay? Yeah, no bother. I'll get my way all the time.
Yeah,
Take
but
a few minutes. Yeah.
sometimes when one of the eyes is talking there, that we have the sixth decision, when one of the eyes is taking over, we think that it is X, like he's talking to us. And we have that illusion, and we say, I am unfragmented, and I'm expressing X, and I do all kind of crazy things in the name of X.
Oh, yeah, let's don't play that game. That's deluding yourself. So, X takes care of the how of anything. If you wanted to do the stupidest thing in the world, okay? If you said that's what you want to do, X will do it for you. But don't say X told you. It'll just do it. Okay?
No, I don't say that X is telling me, but I think that I am representing X.
You're representing whatever you put the conclusions. X will take care of the work. That's true. But it's going to do it according to what you said was the thing to do. You said what, it takes care of the how. So you're only expressing X. When you keep your wits about you and you report accurately as to what's going on. Let's say this is very accurate for a baby, and X carries out the proper thing for the baby. Says it's important to have my way right now, and he screams and cries when he's not having his way right now. In the light of the experience, you see you don't have your way right this minute, but you can have it, okay? So, take a few minutes time to get that. But I wouldn't say that I was representing X.
Does X tell you what to do? Do you get a message from X?
When you are quite enough, yes. I'll get to that one later. It'll tell you what to do if you don't. But ordinarily, people say, if you tell me what to do and I'll do it. That don't work. Because its job is to take care of the how, and your job is to figure out what. So if you want to do a certain project, you start on the project, X will do the work, figure out the project, okay? But it won't tell you what project to work on. It leaves that up to you. That's your job. To say the what, it'll take care of the how, okay? That help answer your question now, okay?
If you were saying to do what I want to do and not to do what I don't want to do.
That's correct.
If you're saying to X the what, and X is taking care of the how, then the only way that X can get to the how is by doing what you want to do, right?
That's it. And if it's based on a misconception, it'll turn out kind of crappy.
There you go.
If it's based on reality, it'll turn out wonderful. Okay?
You got it.
Okay? It'll turn out real wonderful. So we say reevaluate. Yes.
You speak of the non-eyes as usurping the being. You've spoken of the not-eyes as usurping the unconditioned. When you read...
These are usurping the action because of the way they're stated. They need to be reevaluated in the light of experience.
In the re-evaluating, although you're still doing it, are you saying it's now non-usurping?
It's what?
It's not usurping the being anymore, even though you're...
Well, if you take off right now out of that one, that's been reevaluated and corrected. If you do this one, you see you don't have any rights to stick up for, you have privileges, and so you'll protect your privileges. Okay? So they're not usurping anymore. I don't find it necessary to please everybody. I think it's lovely to treat everybody with simple, good manners.
Then you're playing the game, you're saying. Like the game of...
I'm straightening it out in the light of experience. I am not going by these old decisions as they were originally made. Okay? The infant made the decision, and so now they've usurped really the function of awareness because it is altered. But now if I reevaluate them in the light of experience, they're made accurate. Okay? Now, if you want me to, I said, I will write this down how it should be. So it's important to have my way. I think all the importance. It's very interesting to have my way. Now it's not usurping anything, okay? I didn't say right now, and I didn't say it was important. Okay? Then it's, Dexman says it's important to stick up for my rights. It's not important, and I don't really have any rights, so I don't have anything to stick up there, so I'm not usurping there. Okay? I reevaluated, made them into a different state, which is accurate in the light of the experience. Does that help?
But what about, like, say, people are after issues like ozone layer number 6, something like that.
Junk.
So just
What could you do about it if the ozone layer is thick or thin? Can you do anything about it?
No.
It's not your world, so you heard some propaganda.
Okay.
Okay?
Do I have a privilege then of protecting my privileges?
If you take care of it.
Take care of my
You
privileges.
don't stick up for them, you just take care of them. You be a lovely lady and you've got all your privileges, is that right? Yes, ma'am. Somebody in here had your hand up. Ma'am? Did you have your hand up? You were just yawning, okay?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions here?
You said don't care about the ozone problem,
Yeah.
but there is a problem that we're living with. It
What's
is like
that?
if you say if you don't care about those problems, it's like you are ignoring them,
Do you
and it
know,
doesn't mean that they do not exist.
do you know they exist?
Well, I can see that there is a problem with the Kurds in the Middle East.
Do what?
There is a problem in the Middle East, and the people are starving.
That's
You
right.
say you don't care.
I
It
didn't
doesn't
say
mean-
that about them. I was talking about the ozone layer. Two entirely different
Changed
subjects.
the name stranger.
No strangers in the middle of the stream. Yes, the Kurds are having a rough time, so they're sending as much assistance as they can to them. Is that right? Yeah.
But you cannot send assistance just by yourself. You have to organize something. You have to make the appropriate telephones. You have to have the connections, etc. And if we say we cannot help it, it's so far away, it doesn't mean that we cannot make something to
You can do
contribute.
something worthwhile for it, yes,
Okay.
certainly. Okay? But not the ozone layer. You go flying up there in your airplane, you get in trouble. Try to fly up and check it out.
Haven't lately.
Okay? Yes, sir.
If we reevaluate things in the terms of our experience, can we always be sure that that experience is correct?
No, but it's better than nothing.
Okay.
Check it out again. You can reevaluate again if you need to, right? But it's better than just going on as though you were 6 hours old. Okay? No, you can't. It's always right. We never know whether there's anything absolute or not. Okay? Other question? Yes, ma'am.
I just had a comment, about being polite to people and authorities and the rest of it. I read someplace the definition of tact that I
Okay.
would like to achieve. It said the definition of tact is being able to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip.
Right. That's a nice one to work on. That works well. That's used in more than simple good manners. All right.
You made the first diagram, and then you made the second one.
Uh-huh.
The first one supposedly is the ideal, and the second one is where we are, and we try to reach the first one. Don't
Well,
you
the
think
first
that
one-
this is an improvement? Because you're referring to the improvement as you have a third arm or a third leg, etc. But the improvement is in a different
Well,
way
you
as
can
we're
call it
talking about.
improvement if you wish. I don't choose to call it improvement, but you can. Okay. I don't know what's an improvement. It's a reevaluation. You're looking at things in the light of the experience, not just going on and living it unconsciously. Okay? I suppose that you could say that the more conscious you are, the more you're improved, if you want to. I don't choose to use those words, but you can.
I'm saying that because me as a student and talking with other, let's call it students or sharing the work, from the moment we say I, automatically we categorize the individual as being in the not I, and immediately there is a certain perception of that kind of a talk. It's not impersonal. So we, the students, have the tendency to make certain type of discussion. We are involved with, you are in the not I am not. There is a conflict right there as we are talking. In our entrance,
you got it going. You got it going. Keep it up. You'll have good conflict every day. You're welcome to it. I won't argue with you. I'm only telling you how it works, and I won't tell you not to do it, because you probably will. Okay? Other question? Comment? Okay, we'll erase this one. See what gets off here. Erase it down. If everybody like to get up and stretch a little bit and move from your set position, I do so for about 10 minutes if you want to, and that usually leaves you in a decent state lead. So we'll list a bunch of moods up here that a person can have. Now, a mood, your inner state of being can be your greatest asset or it can be your greatest liability. Which one do you use? So let's use the asset version of it, because right now we'll start off with the very bottom ones.
If it's not working, you can take it out. It's okay. It's not.
Okay, I just want to know this is not this down. So we'll draw the line up here. We'll put cross lines up. Each one of these can represent a mood that you want to go on. So the lowest mood is called a coma. Now, I was informed the other day that coma is not a proper word anymore. You're supposed to say the person is unresponsive. That's what we say, but coma is no word out, but with you you are unresponsive. So that's a very low state of being when you don't know anything and so forth. So the one we do know about and can see around, the person is still moving about, is apathy. Now in apathy, the person just doesn't feel like anything. And their physical body is so heavy it just hangs. So when they raise an arm off the table, the arm stays there for quite a while until it gets loose. When they stand up, their flesh falls down around their ankles and so forth. And they're very uncomfortable. So they say, you tell a person, you'll feel better in an hour. I sure hope so. One time there was an apathetic lady came in my office, and I would tell her every day when she left, you'll be feeling better tomorrow morning or something. She would go, I sure hope so. One day I decided that she wasn't listening anyway, so I said, you'll be dead by morning. Sure. About 2 hours she called me and said, did you say I'd be dead? I told her no, she misunderstood me. She was all right. And The next one is fear. Fear is worrying about things that might happen. Haven't happened yet, but they might. What if? That's the big thing of fear. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I don't have a job? What would I do if I didn't have so-and-so? What would I do if I didn't have you? And so on. So, what if? And this person's usually decided to be overweight, not just a little bit long. Next one is held resentment. Held resentment is anger but afraid to express it. So they're burning themselves up, they're real dry and what have you. Many long years ago there was a form of practice of medicine called homeopathy. And they said that the symptoms, or that patients could be divided into two categories. Dry man and beard was wet man. So, inasmuch as those accounted for most of the people who showed up in an office, why they considered they had that pretty well done. So they treated wet man and dry man, fear and held resentment. His mother was arrested, so they were. The next one is anger. Now, the angry person is always angry. We don't always express it emotionally in life, but you can look at him and see he's very angry. Now, when he makes anger and fear, then you have held resentment. So, the next one is boredom. Bored person, you all run into bored people. You can get them into anything. The next one is contentment. Now, contentment is on the line. It is not living above the line, not living below. It's just kind of hanging out right now. So, you find a few contented people in the world. And this is the dividing line. They can take off from there and go for better, or they can go for worse. Now, all of these things from here down is 3 degrees of liability. So if you want to have an inner feeling like that, you can do so. Don't feel good. Never does feel good. Once in a while they'll change a little bit, but these are home bases. They get there a big part of the time. Now, we'll start another column over here of moods that you can have that might be the greatest asset you could ever have. So, the first one we'll call vital interest. Vital interest, the person is fine, they can't wait to get up in the morning and go do whatever it is they want to do, whatever they're interested in, and they're feel good, look good, and a pretty viable state of being. So if you're in vital interest, you're doing fine, don't even need to be here. Okay? The next one is exhilaration. That is you're in a state of bliss and going on about your way, which is very fine. Now, those are the only ones that I have generally put out for people, but I will go over the rest of them today. Because I've been asked to do it a number of times. I really don't see much use of it, but I'm going to do it, okay? Because I don't think most of you got the gear yet. So, right here together, but I'll get it all up here for 3, okay? So, the first one up here is called an artist. Now, I didn't name these, somebody else did. It says that an artist is a person who sees relationships and the outcome of relationships. Okay? Whatever that means. Person sees the outcome. The next one is a prophet. that the prophet has ability to teach understanding of self to others. Next one is a clairvoyance. Clairvoyance. Clairvoyant is the ability to see at a distance, can speak in tongues, and can see things that other people don't see. And has direct communications with spirit. Okay? Next one is a magi. M-A-G-I. That was the people who brought gifts to the Christ. They heal, are healers, and are needful expressions of wisdom, in complete union with spirit, and speaks his tongues as well. Next one is Christ-like man. Says that he has no limitation, he's indestructible, and doesn't die unless he wants to. So that's the point of those. Now I will try to explain a little bit about these. But any of these from here up is a gift. It's called grace, undeserved good. And it happens when you, by your own intentions, keep yourself in vital interest, at least. Okay, and we hear if you want to. Then these just happen as they are needed, and there is nothing you can do to increase the speed of it happening or that you would detract from it and so forth. It's pure grace. It is interesting to note only that they are happenings now and then. In other words, the person that has achieved this state by grace lives here. But he'll go there sometimes when it's needed. He may go to there when it's needed. This one I don't know about. But these I do know he goes to, and this I'll have to take off of what I was told. That he is an indestructible man. Doesn't deteriorate anything else, and he is immortal if he wishes to be. He dies if he wants to, and he don't if he don't want to. That will leave up there, okay? But these do happen to the individual who blindly keeps himself in this. Now, this person here doesn't know anything about any of these up here. This is where the big dividing line comes, is from contentment. Below contentment, these are liabilities to you. Above contentment, these are all great assets. Your inner state of being is the most valuable thing you have, where it can be the biggest liability if you let it stay down at the bottom, okay? Now, there's no reason to let it stay down here unless you just don't want to be bothered, because by using a simple technique, you can go to here with the greatest of ease. Now, I will describe the simple technique. It's called Now, there's only three things that I know that any of us can do. We can think, we can act, and we can feel. Can you tell me anything else you can do? Think, you can act, you can feel. Now, feeling and action go together. If you have feeling first and you act a certain way, you will act that way automatically. Or if you act a certain way, you will feel that way. So now, knowing that part of it, we can kind of see how we can get wherever we want to go. So let's say that you have been living for years, we'll say, in anger. And you'd like to get out of it. Looking at things a little bit. So you would, as long as you feel angry, you will act angry. Okay? It's kind of automatic. But let's say that you will decide to get out. So you would, can't change your feeling right off, but you can change the way you act. So let's say you act vitally interested in something for a little while. Okay? That would be an act that you would put on. And you get the feeling in a little while. Now, the way this works is the first thing you think how you would like to feel. You kind of know that, won't you? You don't have to think too long on that. No, I would like to feel vitally interested in the peace of the world. Is that all right? No. So you think that. Then you would ask yourself, how would I act if I already felt this way? Well, you don't feel that way, but how would you act if you felt that way? Well, you would be interested, you'd have a smile on your face, you'd stand up erect, you'd walk around like you know what you're doing, and so forth. So you begin to act that way, because now you put on the act after the same thing. Purely an act, a put on, if you please. You do, and in very short order, you will begin to feel that way. About 30 minutes of acting, you will begin to feel. Now, let's say you haven't been angry in a long time, but you're bored. So if you wanted to be angry, all you got to do is to clench your fist, lock your teeth, and march around like you want to slaughter somebody, and you'll begin to feel angry in a very few minutes, okay? Probably best doesn't take time to feel good. But you feel angry in a little bit. So you can experiment with these. Think, act, feel. Now, our ordinary way of acting is that we feel a certain way. We'll wake up in the morning and go, so we begin to automatically act that way. And, of course, we think to explain why we're so miserable after a while. That's spelled fat. And so we can change it to T-A-F. Think, act, feel. And you can go anywhere as you want to on the tone scale, except these up here that we said are gifts, are grace, undeserved goods, or whatever way you want to say it. But we can certainly get to exhilaration with think, act, feel. You ever experiment with that, sir? Did work? Every time. It works every time you use it. So you could feel fantastic from now on if you want to take the time to pay attention and put on an act, okay? Pretty soon you won't have to act because you really feel so good. Automatically. But of course, by old habit, you'll go back to it tomorrow morning. So practice it every day for 2 weeks and you get so you stay there all the time.
If you're around a lot of people who complain to you or whatever,
You laugh.
You get punched out?
So you just laugh. They don't know what you're laughing about. They think you're stupid anyway. So they don't hit you. I've tried it. You just laugh all day with all these complainers and victims.
Might it be good for you to get off by yourself and at least go to contentment? I mean, because you don't want to be vitally interested in their complaining, or would that change the
I'm not interested in everybody complaining. I'm interested in seeing what's going on. Okay? And their complaining is a good thing to be interested in. You want to be, but I've got other things to be interested in. But you find people who complain and play the victim role and everything all day long, every day. So if you have to escape from them in order to feel good, you'd have to be a hermit. Hermit kind of
You got it.
Ever around one? Hermit. You don't want to live by themselves. You don't want to be bothered. And usually kicked off anyway. I don't do it, yeah.
when you are experiencing these other people in these lower states, such as the complainant, you see what it is. What is the value of what it is? How do you see the value?
I don't see the value at all to me, so they're probably enjoying it. So I just don't see the value is it reminds me not to do it.
Yeah. You see the results of doing it. You see the value of not doing it.
I see the value of
But
not
there's
doing
no
it.
value in doing it.
No, none whatsoever. I said it's a big liability for the person. So the person's in a great state of liability because of their inner state. They're aging, they're deteriorating, they're getting sick, they feel miserable. You know, they're just in an altogether state of undesirable state of being. I don't want to be there with you. And I don't have to run totally off by myself or get on a boat and get out in the middle of the ocean to get away from them. I just see, well, that's your deal, this is mine. So I say to myself when I'm around those folks, and they're real impressive, I say, that's your inner state, this is mine. I'll take mine. You keep yours. I just say frequently to myself, that's your inner state, this is mine. And I like mine, and I'm not let anybody take it away from me. They can complain, they can cry, they can talk the house of doom down on everybody. If there's anything I can do for one of them, I will gladly do it, but if I can't do it, I must let it alone. Okay? Most of them I can't do anything about. All right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you got a question?
Yeah, what about, I'm involved in a kind of business relationship with a guy that I work with in a group, and when his knot eyes are so lightning quick that
So what?
lightning fast, he changes, like he'll tell me one thing, and 2 seconds later he'll say the exact opposite.
So what?
He does it constantly, so I'm constantly confused and frustrated.
Why are you confused? You see what he's doing?
Yeah.
I know that it's difficult to work with.
Well, I wouldn't work there.
Can I just like take him so he'll believe me when I tell him? Like I told him a couple of times, I said, well, you just said this. No, I didn't.
But so he doesn't know any different. So what's the difference? He's totally unconscious. So why try to straighten him out? You see what's going on and laugh if you were interested. If you want to be confused about it, be confused.
So
If
I
you-
shouldn't tape our conversations and play it back to him.
If you want to ignore it, or you can say, that's your inner state, this is mine. You don't get confused because he is. You say, you're confused, that's your inner state, this is mine, I'm not confused. So you don't say it out loud, you say it to yourself. That's your inner state, this is mine. And you will find that you can get along there quite well. You are trying to play the victim role because you work with him and he is so confused he makes you confused. But you're playing the victim role there, Miss Mary, and that's not a very desirable state either. Okay?
Bob, what was the difference between exhilaration and vital interest?
So what?
Exhilaration and vital interest. What is
Well,
different?
exhilaration is you are so delighted that you really don't want to do anything. Vital interest at work. I wouldn't recommend a person stay in exhilaration too much because it won't work.
That's something like
you get
bliss.
so feeling so good you just care.
And there's a point in being there at times.
Oh yeah, at times it can be there, but not when you have something to do.
Okay. It's like bliss.
Yeah, it's bliss. Other words for it.
How about people who
Wait
move?
just a minute, I'm going back here to the chart.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on how you act these things? Like how do you act vital interests or something? Is it a totally
Well, I told
outward
you,
thing?
but I'll run it by again, David. I said first, you get a smile on your face, you stand up straight, you move like you know where you're going, okay? And you are looking at things because you're interested in them. Doesn't matter what it is you're interested in. You could be interested in squirrels in the backyard, or you could be interested in cats on the floor, or you could be interested in cars on the street, or you can be interested in art or some subject you see in front of you at the moment. But act interested, okay? That help all right, David? Okay, another question here.
How about somebody who, when he gets bored, he moves down to anger?
That's quite often. Most people who live down here, very up down here,
All the time.
very little bit, but some. They always got a home base, but they move around somewhere else. But if they're over here, they stay in here all right, and they do go up here now and then. Okay?
Could you say to X, I want to be in vital interest, and X takes care of the house?
If you act your part, you must do your part. You've got to act it. Don't just say it. Don't say, That's the way some people will go about it. Just do your part. Okay.
If like if Ray was on the golf course and he hit a bad shot and he started getting caught in that, could he like be vital interested in the trees and the squirrels and get himself distracted?
Well, he could get himself back to vital interest. When he started on the golf course this morning, he would say, I'm interested in this ball going where I look for it to go. Okay? Don't worry about all of those swings and tees and all that good stuff. Just go over there. Go over there. Let's go take it over there then.
Then he has all the time for the next time he does that. You know, when he walks down to the next tee or the next shot. That's where I think that happens, that he gets, right?
Well, he makes it important that he does it right and gets to worry, what if I don't stand this right or swing this right or something or other. But if he walks up to the ball and says, you're here and I want you over there, then he'll hit it and we'll get there pretty close.
You got it.
Okay? Yes?
I guess I just need a little bit of clarification, Bob. You said before that the upper states are the ones that enable you to be of service, like healing or accomplishing something. But if it's grace, you can't really put yourself there, can you?
No,
If
you can't
feel
put
the need.
yourself there. It's only when you're needed to be there you do.
Oh, so if
Like
you're in vital interest and
somebody called me up and said he wanted to walk on water. And I said, what do you need it for? To have boats and bridges and all this. That's what you need to walk on water for. If you don't, wait till it turns into ice and you walk on it.
well, Bob, suppose you're being in vital interest and someone says, I need a healing, and you ask for help. You can't put yourself in a state.
No, but if you're vitally interested, you're liable to be there.
And the needs presented, you're there.
You're there.
You're up where you need to be.
Grace takes care of that.
You really wouldn't need to see. In the upper states, there isn't something there you would need to see.
No.
What would be the state that you
We'll
would
say
be
that
in?
one day you were floating along here in vital interest and somebody come along and needed something that this level would do. You'd be there.
You would be there.
And you might be there for 10 minutes or you might be there for half an hour or whatever. You'd be back here. And then another probable case would say that in the same day, somebody come along that you need to be here, you'd be there. Okay?
A healing of like a physical problem.
Yeah.
It would put you up into which of the other states probably for something to
Take you
happen.
up to Magi.
You go all the way up there.
Oh, yeah.
Would you feel differently?
Oh, yeah, you feel different. Till you get the job done, then it goes back to where it was. Okay.
There's no reason to stay up there in the
No, you would be worth something. Unless you want to be a great healer every minute, nobody can heal. What's
Bob, so people can get into vital interest,
That
but
you can do deliberately.
there aren't people who are permanently in those others until they
No.
get to be Christ-like man.
That's correct.
Then that would be permanent.
I That's what I heard. I said, I don't know. I can't tell you secondhand. I don't know. That's,
Some of these upper ones are speaking in tongues. What does that mean?
they talk where the person they're talking to can understand them, even though it's a foreign language. So in other words, if you met up a Greek and you really needed to speak to him, I don't know, maybe you speak Greek, but more than likely you don't. Then you could speak to him and he would understand you. That's,
you would speak in your own language, but he would understand in
as
his.
far as you're concerned, you'd be speaking your own, but he would understand you in Greek.
If you're in a really tight spot somewhere and you really need to know something, and you're in a foreign country, if you can get the vital interest,
you're saying
gonna
vital
understand
interest, the rest of it will take care of itself, okay? Yeah.
What is the characteristic of the Magi?
A Magi. He is a person who can do healing, can speak in tongues, and has no problems of his own while he's there, and can be of assist in whatever difficulty a person would need or have.
Thank you.
he also sees something, certain things clearly.
One can see everything clearly. Wonderful. And it's a healer. Yes, wait just a minute here. You got another
The
question?
prophet, I didn't get down what you said about the prophet.
Prophet sees relationships and the end of relationships.
More than the artist.
Yeah. Artist sees physical relationships.
Now, how does something like this, I mean, we have friends, a close couple, delightful people. They have a daughter who, one day she came home from work and said to her mother, 2 blocks down the street, she'd seen this terrible accident. She described the whole accident completely. And they went down, there had been no accident. 2 days later, an accident happened exactly as she had seen it.
Yeah.
Was she at that moment in one of the upper states or not?
Probably so. She can see the future, yeah.
She was not trying. She just was
it
walking
just
home and saw it.
Just happened. No, if she'd been trying, she wouldn't see it.
She might have been in vital interest
Might have
at that moment.
been. She apparently was, and so she went up and up to see what was going to happen. I don't know what they see, but they see it, and they describe it, and it happened. I've seen that situation a few times. And people say they're big liars. First off. But they're not big liars. Okay. That's
Bob, I have several people I know who they call themselves clairvoyants. Okay.
Oh yeah, they call themselves that.
But I'm saying they do have the ability. They can like grab it, and yet very egocentric.
Yeah.
Strong non-eccentric. What is happening there?
I don't know. I'll have to check on them to see.
Yeah.
But I really don't know.
But you probably met people like that.
I've met people like that.
What is the characteristic of this clairvoyant?
Clairvoyant can see all sorts of things that other people can't see. See things that's happening in Europe while he's sitting right here. Or he can see something that's going to happen tomorrow or next week or whenever it's going to happen. He really doesn't know. He thinks it's happening right now while he's in.
But if you're with him and he's claiming it, he might not really be there.
That's right. But if he tells you he's a clairvoyant, why, I would forget about it. I'd forget about it. Self-proclaimed clairvoyance, I'd forget about it. Yes, Mary?
That experience that I had last year, where I felt like I was pulled up through the tunnel of light and everything, and at the top of it I felt like total love, and it healed some things in me psychologically. And
Good.
what would that have been, like exhilaration or bliss?
Probably so. Probably exhilarated for a little while.
Where, like I saw a whole picture of what I had been.
Excuse me a minute.
I saw like a big truth about how I've been seeing things, like in a flash, like that would have been like exhilaration.
Okay. So
That
you
was-
probably exhilarated and you saw something and then you felt much better. It was for you, not for other people.
Yeah.
Right? Okay?
I noticed once, I'm assuming that I was in the artist state at this time. I was building something.
Yeah.
And I got all involved in this, and I was working away late at night. And I built this thing out of wood. And then I needed to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I laid down, but there was no way I could get out. I was just laying there thinking about going back out there and working on this wood. Is there a way of getting out of that I can...
Not until it's ready. They don't care about your sleep. Then when it gets ready, it'll quit, and then you're all right. But no, you have no choice when you're going to be there. You don't know have choice how long you're going to be there. Okay. It may be a flash, like Mary said, or it may be hours. Okay. Yes, John.
In what states would you say you would be in connection with unconditional love?
Probably Magi. They have unconditional love. Be right. And it would be there for the time you were there, and then when you went back, say down to here, it was there that way. Okay? Yes, sir.
I know a wonderful teacher that works with first and second graders, and what you said up there just clarified something to me, because she tells her first graders at the very beginning, if they say, I'm bored, she says only boring people are bored, so you just get yourself interested in something. Right. And she teaches them right in the very beginning. If you're bored, find something to do, and I thought, isn't that interesting that she knew that?
People that are bored are boring people. That's true. That's right. I know. Okay. Other comment? Question? Anything? Make noise. You were in there? You're going to say something? You just get you in your ear.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
The direct contact with X, I believe you said, was that the Christ-like man, or was it the...
That's the Christ-like man.
And there is none?
There's
I'm not sure, I guess I'm not sure exactly what that means, because...
I don't know either. Told you that. I don't know.
On other levels, though, isn't there a feeling of union?
Yes.
But that's not what you're talking about.
Any of these down here would have that feeling of union.
But the top one is something a little bit...
Yeah, it's something that I don't know about. If I ever know, I'll let you know. If I ever know. If I ever know, I'll let you know. Okay?
Would you clarify relationships for me? If the artist is physical relationships, you mean like what you would build, what you would do, how things work?
What you working on, the relationship between the house and the trees, relationship between you and another person.
Oh, so it is people, but okay, now with profit...
People have things.
What is the difference then with profit and relationship?
Profit has far more understanding of a relationship and will see the end of the relationship. See how the relationship will end. Okay. Yeah.
All of us have the possibility of being up to Magi, depending on the experience needed.
As far as I know, you have the opportunity to be there if it's needed, okay?
Well, I guess you see lots of us who make it through all the various stages, and I was wondering if you've seen some who make it up to the top, too.
Yeah, I expect so. Some of us will get there. I hope.
Now the question is, have you already seen people in the...
If there's a need for it to see the outcome of a relationship, you'd be here. So, okay. Only when you need it. I don't think it's just about will. Yeah.
From artist on up, then you're saying isn't from within, you're needed for yourself. Artist on up is needed for the people around you.
It seems that way more likely. Most of the time. It may be for you now and then. I don't know. But it's usually for other people. Okay? Yes.
Is there a change in the body when one is going from vital interest, say, to artist or above? There seems to be something changing in the body as one...
Yep, there sure is. It quits deteriorating. Looks very vital. Okay? Things go on in the body we don't know about.
That's not necessarily a lasting state, though.
No, not necessarily. It'll stay around for a while. Yes, sir.
this question of when it's needed intrigues me. Someone
That's
must
when it
determine
has
the
something
need.
that it can do, something that can be done that aids a person some way or
But
other.
doesn't the person have to want it to happen to them?
More likely, yeah. More likely.
I'm sure that you see all kind of needs,
Yeah. There's always needs around there.
right, that you don't really do anything about.
No, don't do anything about it sometimes. Sometimes I do.
So to get in that state, something's needed, but I don't quite understand what that means.
Well, it would be advantageous for the person to have certain things, and probably they want it. I don't know.
The want has to be there.
I think so. Definitely want us to be in everything. Yes, ma'am.
And it sounds as though we can report to X until we reach that vital interest, and at that time something takes over and possibly X takes over, where our reporting doesn't really matter, because what will happen will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's when you reach that vital interest, those self-centered ideas you want are not there as prominent.
That is usually when the person can report accurately, okay?
Okay. So,
Before
and
they
in
end
fact,
the
it's
report.
not, that person is not figuring out what to
No.
report, it's just being reported. So I'm not reporting, the reporting is happening.
That's the risk. We'll talk about that one after lunch, okay? Okay. You see, I don't think this person down here, the apathy, I don't think they could report anything. They say, I sure hope so, but their tone of voice says, but I know damn well it won't.
Or do they,
So, take
do
care
they
of
even
that.
know that they're thinking at that point? Do they even know that they're thinking at
No,
that
they
point?
aren't thinking, they're just reacting. I said, I told the lady that she'd be dead in the morning, and she said, I sure hope so.
But she was really pleading with you and begging and all this kind of stuff to feel better, wasn't she?
No.
No?
She just enjoyed playing video.
So if somebody's asking us to report from because everything is so horrible and all that kind of stuff,
They're just playing victim
you're just
role.
playing victim. So in yourself, you say you're just playing victim, and
So
that's
I'll
your
report for
understanding.
you, go on, what difference does it make, yeah. Mary?
In the case of, like, I'll spend an afternoon trying to write a song and don't get very far, and I'll go
No,
to bed.
you don't get it started, you
I'll
can't
go
get
to
it very
bed
far.
I'll go to bed that night, and I'll just be about to fall asleep, and suddenly a whole song will come full blown, everything, all the lyrics,
There
and
it is.
music. And I get up, and it's like I didn't write it; it just came into.
That's
my
when
head.
you don't make things important. As long as you were making it important to write the song, you couldn't write two
What kind
words
of
fit
state are
together.
you in when it feels like it's just dictated to you?
Oh,
You
anytime.
have to get up and translate.
Anytime, as long as you're not making things important, okay?
Is that an artist state though when you get up? And you
Oh,
have to
no,
do
it's
it?
probably silent.
Silent.
But don't make things important, and you'll have that happen more often. I said we talk about that after lunch,
Yeah,
okay? Okay,
Mhm.
other word, another question, comment? Everybody get involved in this, we're working on it. Yes,
So it's a decision when you recognize that you are in fear or anger. I had a situation where I became emotional for about a week
yeah,
and really saw where I can't physically or emotionally, handle the emotions.
it was rattled, in other words.
Yeah. Is it just the process of recognizing the conditioning and the time?
And doing something about it, think, act, feel, just feeling like you want to instead of the miserable state you were in, okay?
Thank goodness it only lasted a week rather than before, where it was my whole lifestyle.
Existence. So you can have it happen, last for 30 minutes if you work at it, okay? You get up to vital interest in 30 minutes. If you want to, and say you were down here in fear or apathy or next thing to it, you can be in vital interest in 30 minutes if you think, act, feel, okay? That's something you always have to handy to do. If you remember to do it. If you forget, start feeling how much a victim you are and what a horrible state you're in. You can get in a mess, okay? Burl?
So a way to use that every day is maybe to use it as your purpose of living.
Okay, use it as a purpose. I'll just feel good today. What's wrong with that? And start acting on it, and you'll do it. Okay? You don't have to put on an actress or anything. Well, we all have actors or actresses anyway. Why not do it? Right? Okay. As long as we have taken all this time, we'll take a break until 2 o'clock. Meantime, I will be here to have private appointments if anybody so wants to have one. I'll tell you more or less in private when I've just told you in public. But I'll be here to retell it in private if you want to. I'm told some person I will see them. I will do that. And there's beautiful cheesecake over here for those who can enjoy it. Who?
You've got a circle on the board now.
Circle on the board.
Well.
What's the little circle on the board?
Yes, thank you.
We're not going to rearrange this.
Okay, have a chair. Okay. We'll talk. Let's see if we can find out something else about human beings. Strange creatures. This one we'll talk about. Okay. This one we'll talk about the brain situation. You have 3 of them. They're called 3-brain creatures. So, we'll consider what each brain does and what we can do with them if we need to be. The first brain is, number 1, is called a primitive brain. They call it primitive because the most primitive creatures on Earth has it. They only have one. The primitive brain looks after the body. It does a very good job of taking care of it. If you get excited, it runs the heart rate up, and blood pressure up, and digestion stops, and all that good stuff. So it knows exactly what to do for it. If you exercise, it makes the muscles stronger. If you goof off, it makes them weaker. It's not going to do anything for you if you don't need it. So let you out and lift weights and build big muscles on you. And it digests food, tells you when you're sleepy and when to stay awake, and you go to sleep, and it tells you when to wake up. It's takes perfectly good care of the body. And I suppose it laughs a lot when it hears people say they should do this for their health and that for their health, and they should take a little exercise, and they should eat some oat bran and what have you, and it knows exactly what you need. If you just listen to it, it takes good care of it. So number 1 is the primitive brain. Number 2 is the brain of logic and reason. It works real well to work math problems. It does a few other things, but not near as much as we ask of it. We ask it to tell us what to do in the future and what to do to get rich and what to do to be peaceful and all this kind of stuff. And winds up with a lot of confusion and conflict and a lot of noise. In fact. So, if we look at it as the brain of logic and reason, we would use it for logic and reason to work math problems and what have you, and we wouldn't try to use it for living purposes. But everybody tries to use it as a living ordinance, and it don't work very well. Number 3 brain is called the intuitive. Now it has intuitive action, and it only works when everything else is quiet. So you hear about a quiet mind. This is what you work for, to have a quiet mind. And then intuition takes place. Now, I heard some gentlemen talking about writing a song. They said they sat down and tried to use logic and reason, and they couldn't get a word out. Worked for hours. Finally, they just give up and let the mind go quiet, and they were just quiet and do nothing, so to speak. And all of a sudden, they had a whole song written out. Just in flash. Because intuition made it available. So, we do a pretty good job of trying to control the primitive brain, and we do a pretty good job of trying to use the logic and reason brain for everything, but we usually do nothing with the intuitive brain. So, we kind of learn a little bit about how to use it. One of the best things to get the mind real quiet is to listen. I don't care if you're out in the desert or on the coast or on the coast, beach, or anywhere. If you just listen to see what you can hear, and you're very quiet, you'll find the mind gets quiet almost instantly once you start listening, really listening. I'm trying it right now.
I was hearing the bird outside. I heard the bird outside.
Well, just listen. Are you thinking? Are you listening? Quietly. Okay. So then if you have something you wanted to know, you'd ask the question, and then, shall we say, just listen intently for a little bit. The mind becomes very quiet, and then you will know from intuition basically what you asked for, what you asked about. You will know it. Very easy. But it's never used. So let's do something that was done before. Let's use it. Okay? Just listen. And intuition comes into being very quickly. I know a man who was needing some $2 million for a project he was working on, and he exhausted all his grounds of logic and reason. He didn't find 10 cents. So I talked to him about letting intuition doing it and be quiet. So he went home and said he listened for an hour. And all of a sudden he thought of how to get the $2 million, and he found it the next morning without any sweat. Seems kind of strange, but that's the way it works. So it's not that X maybe tells us what it is, but we have an intuitive function within ourselves and third brain, which will tell you. But its prerequisite is that you be absolutely quiet in the logic and reason area, so it's not chattering away, and you can get that done very quickly by listening, just intently listening. Quiet it down in a hurry. You try it right now.
I thought of some things that I could do this and
Well, how
see what
about
happens.
just listening right now? See what happens.
Okay.
You listen. What do you hear? Huh? Well, you're not thinking, you just hear. Your thoughts all quit, didn't they? Okay, that's what you're working for. So this is the way you get intuition turned on. Now, the primitive brain seems to work very nicely, taking care of the body, except when you use logic and reason to determine you know how to run a body. But wouldn't it be funny if we had to arrange to keep our blood pressure to take that thing going on at the moment? circulation of blood going on, elimination going on, wouldn't we be rather busy? Did you ever think of the thousands of functions going on in a human body right now, and if you had to look after all of them, you'd be very busy. In fact, I don't think you'd get it done. So the primitive brain takes out, and it works the best when you're not thinking what you should or should not do to be healthy. Logic and reason is a wonderful brain. It's a wonderful gift. Great value. Moment by moment right now.
But if you asked something you knew once before, that is where it comes from?
They'd probably know what it was you was asking from down here, so they could tell you yes.
Because one time I met someone who gave me a name, and I knew I must have known that person by some other name. And weeks later, suddenly her name, her real name, flashed through my mind. I wasn't even asking, and so that came. Taking a shower.
Yeah,
Which one? You think that came from?
Intuition probably knows it.
Had it stored somewhere.
It wasn't laying out here in primitive brain or anywhere. Well, we have things like that happen. Yes.
Would intuition be putting you in contact with like universal mind?
That's probably one way of saying it. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Sir.
If I want to have my memory better than it is that, how would that function? Would that be under the intuition? Or?
Yeah, that's be under intuition. You say, I'd like to remember better. And you get real quiet, and it'll tell you how, okay? Yes?
Well, is that, what are some forms of the questions you can put to this intuitive mind? Like, you just had one like, I'd like to remember better, and quiet.
First off, you ask any question that you see fit to ask that you want to know about, not just foolishness, but that you want to know about, and you get the mind quiet. I gave you a technique, listen, and then you will hear an answer, okay? You will realize an answer. Call it listen, you hear it, realization, or whatever you want, but you will know the answer very shortly, okay? Does that answer your question? Is that all right?
If there's something you're trying to work out, and it just won't come and won't come, that's because you're trying to use the logic and reason part instead of just listening.
That's right. And you got to get the mind quiet. The best way to get it quiet, the easiest way to get it quiet is just to listen, okay? You just send an easy way. Yes, ma'am.
You use mind and brain interchangeably? Is there a difference?
Oh, they're pretty much the same. Brain has mind. Mind has brain. So you don't get your mind out here running around very well without a brain. And you don't find brainless has mind. Okay. I think you're interchangeable. Yes, ma'am.
Could you please amplify a little on listening, on stilling the mind to pay attention, a little more on that, please?
Stilling the mind.
Yeah, stilling the chatter and paying attention.
I said that you would listen very intently. Okay? That's the easiest way. There's probably other ways. But that's the easiest way. Just try it right now. Listen and see if you think. Good.
Oh, I see what you mean. You can't do two things at the same time. You physically listen, you can't think.
So it works, okay?
Is the inflammation 100% accurate?
As far as I've ever checked. I don't know, it may fizzle once in a while. But I've never seen it be effective, okay? Yes?
Sometimes I'm working over things or get confused or whatever. I keep a journal, and I'll write things in it, and I'll be asking questions in my journal. And from somewhere, answers start coming, or things to try or work out start coming through my hands. Is that the intuition that's coming through?
I'd say that's intuition, if you're quiet, yes. If you're not quiet, you're liable to imagine things, and then information is not correct, okay? But if you are really quiet, I find the information is always correct, and it happens. So I'd say that's intuition you're doing there, right? Okay? Other question, comment? Let's all get involved here. Ruth? Is that nothing to say?
Not yet.
Okay. Back here.
Does this correspond to biological structure of the brain, like the cerebral cortex and so forth? Is there a correspondence?
Yes, there's a reasonable correspondence, but I'm not going into it, okay? But it's a correspondence to it, okay? And the brain is usually in two pieces instead of one. The two pieces work as one, okay?
Would you agree with the following two statements? One, if you're listening, you have to be you have to be in an attentive state. You can't listen without being attentive.
Right.
So your ability to listen is controlled by your ability to be attentive.
That's correct.
And the second thing is, this one's experience is that the logic and reason brain is a usurper. It takes credit for what comes out of the intuitive.
It likes to be.
I mean, I used to give credit to my logic and reasoning, which it wasn't always intuitive.
Right, right. So now you know the difference. Okay, good. And logic and intuitive is much more valuable. Right. Logic and reason is useful in its place. And they are very much correct in high-speed computer and so forth. Okay?
You mentioned about doing what I want to do and not doing what I don't want to do.
What you don't want to do? What is you don't want to do?
Well, as I was working with it yesterday, I found out I didn't know what I wanted to do because all the logic and reasoning was talking. I couldn't make a decision about something. So what you're saying is just get off by myself and be quiet.
Get off anywhere, whether you're in a crowd of people or by yourself. Listen, and your brain will get blank. Do a good thing. Then you can answer your question. What do I want to do?
And sometimes if it gives it to you right away, it's usually the chatter, not the intuition.
No, you give it to you right quick.
But you'll know. You'll know the difference between the chatter and the...
altogether different. Come all together different. Different flavors, different tastes, everything. Okay? Okay? Well, if we wore that subject out, we'll quit. If you wore it out, but I don't think you wore it out yet.
Can you use the intuition on anything?
Pretty well anything that you really want to know the answer to. Okay?
All right, on things like what's going on here now, that sort of thing.
I usually ask that, and I'll give you a quick answer to it. It might.
Can you listen to improve your conscious contact with X to get that channel open or get it?
Can you do what? Excuse me, I didn't hear you clearly.
When you're listening, can you simply value taking time to sit down and listen for X? In other words, with no particular conscious problem, but just to see what X has to say?
No.
No? It has to be something you're experiencing.
It's something you want to know.
Ah.
It's not just out of curiosity, okay? What you're asking.
Where would the decision to be non-disturbed be, or the six nadas be in relation to those three?
Where is it?
Yeah.
It's in logic and reason. Second brain. Okay?
When one reports to X something that has been perceived, and sometimes there's a spontaneous response that has nothing to do with the normal self, the way it functions. How does that relate to the intuition?
That probably was intuition. Okay?
Then is reporting to X and the listening similar?
No, but they can one follow the other. You report first what you want, and then be quiet and hear the answer, okay? Yes?
Is that like where I've kind of been looking at something or trying to understand something using logic and reason, and I'll wake up and the first thing in the morning when I open my eyes and feel like this big light bulb goes on, and I see this whole picture in front of me.
Yeah, you only got quite asleep in a while.
Yeah. And then,
Slow motion,
and then
but
the
it works.
intuitive brain offers the answer, like the intuitive brain offers this. It feels like a mini enlightenment. Like
Yeah,
you see
they
this
give
whole
you a light
picture.
globe. And I said you only get intuitive when you've been asleep for a while.
Yeah.
And I said that's a slow motion way of doing it, but you can do it that way all you want to, okay?
Kind of like a little gift for things.
Oh, yeah, you'll get it. First off, okay, Tom?
I got my question.
You got it, okay. Okay?
If someone once had their face pushed into Bermuda grass, and now every time they drive by it, they get a reaction.
Yeah,
hay
an
fever.
allergy or something.
Yeah. Would that be out of the second brain also?
Oh, yeah, that's the second one.
All the not eyes in second brain.
Yeah, all the not eyes live in the second brain. So they said, well, man, here it comes again. And you get all sniffly and everything. But if you ask, why do I get sniffly when I go to Bermuda grass, you'd probably remember very quickly that you got your face pushed in it, and you wouldn't have any problem with it anymore. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yes?
Well, an issue that it's come up several times, like if somebody gets cancer from smoking, is that the second brain
Who said
taking
they
over?
did?
I'm saying, could that be the second brain?
Oh, that's suggestion going on second brain all the time.
And you're saying that the number one brain would not cause cancer by smoking?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It functions the body quite well. But if you pour a bunch of emotional fears into it, why, it works on those too. So you can get that people get cancer from smoking cigarettes. What about all the ones that got cancer that never smoked a cigarette? What do you answer those with, you know?
A lot of people feel the first brain comes into contact. You're saying you feel it doesn't come into contact.
Yeah, the first brain, if it receives constant suggestion that the person's in trouble because they smoked a cigarette or spelled one somewhere off or something like that, then they get in trouble with it. But basically, the second brain is the source of all not eyes, okay? Now, we got one back here. Mary?
Is it possible to get to a point where you live more in the third brain?
Is what?
Where you kind of live using the third brain most of the time?
Can
rather
you do
than
it?
the second one?
Yeah, if you listen a lot and keep your brain quiet when you do that, get there more than time,
Would
right?
that be where like a magi was living for?
I don't know. I told you I didn't know about some of those, okay?
You said you knew about magi.
Are there still some substances that are possibly toxic to the body, not based on the allergy thing? I was thinking, like, I was buying a certain kind of litter for my cat, and the manufacturer started putting a different product in it, which came up all into the air. Now, I had a feeling that wasn't too great to be breathing, but it had nothing to do, I don't think, with any past things or something.
No, I wouldn't think that, but you would notice it now. If you keep it around, you've seen one for a while, you get so used to it. Okay.
But it was like filtering out and getting on everything.
Yeah.
And if
Well, I've taken it back.
I did, but I mean that doesn't.
That's appropriate.
There are some things maybe that the human
yeah,
body is not going to take too easily.
And get along with it, but it may not be easy. But not all these things that they tell you is carcinogenic is going to do you in overnight. Okay?
I've been experimenting with listening, especially that it stopped the not eyes. I used to scream in my car or beat a pillow on the bed, and it really is a lot less violent and works.
Pretty good.
It works. It works. I can do it anywhere.
Right. You don't have to wait till you get in the car by yourself.
Yeah.
The other will work too.
Yeah.
But, and drastic cases why you may beat the car, but otherwise you just get the brain quiet to listen. It works pretty good. Okay?
I haven't been asking a question before. I've been practicing with it to get quiet.
Okay, now then you can ask a question. You might get an answer. That's great. Okay?
Okay, and my question is, in accurately reporting or asking a question, to keep it simple,
Keep it as simple as you can.
I have trouble with brevity.
Well, see if you can get it as simple as you can. You could even say, what's next? I'll keep it pretty simple. Keep it simple. Keep it everything kind of simple. Okay?
Oh, you'll be glad to hear that you said that. Right, Bobby? Because when we're working together, I've got about 16 songs, and we only need one.
I know, but which one of the 16 are you going to use?
I know.
They can have an hour's delay about you figure out which one. Okay, another one? Question, comment? Yes?
In our workaday world or during the day or any time, a lot of times we just sort of march through things and we work on reactions. Someone does something to us and we react back. Which brain is that coming out of?
I'm coming out of number 2. And I quit it. Just reacting is a miserable state of existence in the long run. Okay? Just reacting is a miserable state of existence.
Amen.
Sorry.
Yes.
Do other than humans have the number 2 brains?
Most of them have 1 and 2. Higher animals all have 1 and 2. I don't know where they got the bigger. Not about them, so I don't know. But they do have 1 and 2. Yeah.
If you are observing others reacting, and you're in the room,
okay.
just listening, is that valuable in this experience? I mean, people in the room are having difficulty. They're reacting to each other, and you're observing them.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it possible for you to just
Be quiet.
be quiet
Yeah.
and listen?
Let's be quiet. And they will straighten out a little bit.
They will?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Don't try to aggravate those people.
Don't try to what?
Don't try to talk to the people. Just be quiet, okay? And listen. Okay?
Ray, we can use that on Daddy.
Whatever. Yes, ma'am.
I always have a big thing with the internal judge that I have here. If I did just listening thing, would that kind of take the judge out of commission?
You were saying you
know, if I was observing reactions between people, a lot of times the judge will come up to me and judge it, and then I'll be in the middle of it all.
Oh, yeah.
But
if you hear conflict going on, just be quiet and ask, and it'll calm down if it's any of your business, okay? If it's none of your business, it won't say nothing to you, but you just be quiet anyway. Okay? Okay? Yes, sir.
Would you call all 3 of these phases of an awareness function of X, or just number 3? How are you?
All 3 of them? They're a function of X, yes.
The awareness.
Uh-huh. There are 3 varieties of it. It's not all just simply one thing, it's 3 of them. So
and you were saying
each one does a certain job that it's supposed to do. Yes, sir.
You call it brain, but in some other traditions they call it body, the intuitive body.
Okay. Suits me all right. Don't bother me a bit. Use it, body or brain or mind if you want to. It all comes down to me. Okay?
The universal mind is all information, all that you can.
The last time I heard it did. I don't know. It may be something come up to one right now. I don't know, but as far as we know now, it has all the information. Anybody, okay? Okay, suppose we take about a 5-minute break, and that's a half hour, and we'll go on another one, okay? We'll take about a 5-minute break.
Could you say something what you mean by that, and how you tie it in with somebody, you agree with somebody about the word, and what do you mean by that, and how does it tie in with the diagram?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I didn't use the word, I'm sure.
The tape will show you didn't use the word.
Huh?
The tape will show you didn't use the word.
Somebody else asked that.
Huh?
Somebody else asked about the universal.
Well, that's all right. We let them ask anything they like. But I didn't say it. But
okay.
It probably fit all right. Okay?
Well, could you say something about or tie it in? You haven't mentioned that first diagram, the unconditioned man.
I'll think on that a minute and get back to you. What you say?
I was thinking about a question that I didn't know. I guess it would fit in with intuitive mind and I'm not sure it's a legitimate question. That is, what is to my advantage? If you listen and ask, what is to my advantage?
Oh, it's a little ambiguous.
It would have to be in relation to some specific thing.
Now, you're asking about universal mind.
Well, it was mentioned,
Well, see, I don't know about universal mind. I've heard the expression.
Yeah.
I don't know whether there is such a thing or not. What I've tried to read about it said that there was one big mind that had all information in it, and then you had an individual mind, and she had one, and he had one, and I had one, and all that. But I really don't know what they mean by that phrase. So I knew, sure, I didn't use the word. Somebody else may have used it. I've left it over, okay? We'll talk about making things important. Now, about everybody here makes something very important. Is that right, Christy? Huh? You made something very important a while ago, and that's why you couldn't even know your own name. Is that right? Huh? Okay. You ever make things important? Get agitated all over. You make things important. Your blood pressure goes up, your cholesterol level goes up, heart rate goes up. Can't pass the physical exam because you made it so important to pass the physical exam. Is that about right?
Sounds about right.
You did it.
I guess. I'm still checking that out.
Okay. So we can make things important that all say things like examinations. They are very important. You can know it right and left. Say they had to take an exam on the third grade. And you certainly know all the information and everything there, but you couldn't pass it because you get so buzzed up you wouldn't know that. So we make a little statement that says, whenever I make anything important, I am anxious. Now that's simple, and when you're anxious, you don't know what you're doing usually. You're fluttering around. Is that correct? You couldn't make a placement or anything that week. That you couldn't even think about it. So when you make things important, you injure your ability. No matter how good you are, you make it important, your ability level goes down. Sometimes it totally quits. I have made it important in years past to remember, say, a title. I couldn't think of it for nothing. No way, I couldn't get that title. Forget about it. Well, business is title. I get it. So, when you make things important, you have totally incapacitated yourself. That's correct? That sounds like it? When you make something important, you incapacitate yourself. So anything that puts us in a state of incapacitation seems like it'd be worthwhile considering a little bit. All right? So, I had a lady call me from Southern California the other day, and she said, I have lectured myself for 2 weeks over you're not making anything important, and it's still important. Yeah. Because all you did was said the words, you didn't stop making it important. Oh, she said, I thought I was just saying it would stop. No, she was going on and making this subject very important. But she was saying to herself, I'm not making this important, I'm not making this important, I'm not making this important, but her solar plexus was tightening up what she was making it important. So let's don't kid ourselves. We don't stop something by saying, I'm not going to make it important. We do it by not making it important. How do you not make it important? You set your state of being against it. You're not making it important. I heard somebody say here a while ago that they was making it important to not make it important, to make it important so they can do something. Something like that. But the point was that you take your solar plexus and you take the importance out of things because you turn it loose. In other words, she was making it very important that she had a certain situation arise while she was saying, I'm not going to make it important. I thought she was kidding herself. But when I got her to look at, she turned it loose. And it really doesn't matter what.
You still at the time.
Oh, yeah. But did you ever try to turn it loose and see what would happen?
I've turned it, but it's turned out fine. And I didn't remember that I turned it loose and how well that it worked out.
And how well it worked. Is that right? And you didn't remember how you did it. But all you do is turn it loose and say, it don't matter. Oh, what? And you really mean that. You don't just say the words. And when you cease to make something important, you find that you can function quite well. You function on top line then, okay? You have all the ability to do it. That's in third brain, but you have to let it get quiet. And you can't get quiet while you're making things important. You get it quiet by listening is one way, an easy way to do it. So, if this lady, instead of giving herself the lecture that she should not be making it important while she was making it important, had only stopped to listen for 10 minutes instead of keeping on pounding away of making it important and criticizing herself because she was making it important and all this kind of stuff, it would have all been over with a week ago. But she didn't do it that way. She did it the hard way, which didn't work. So let's do it the easy way. Everything that works is simple. Sometimes people say to me, well, Robert, you make everything simple. It sounds simple when you say it. I said, yes, it is simple because I say it like it is, and it is simple. If you allow it to be simple, or you can complicate a little out of it, right? You can do it, but you don't have to. I'm giving you ways to stop it. So you take it in here. It really doesn't matter, does it? Whether I feel top of the world right now or whether I'm tired right now, it doesn't make any difference. I'm not going to make it important either way. So I make it important because I'm a little tired of it. I'm out and gone and so forth, and I'm anxious about it. When am I going to get this thing over with? And so on until I'm in a terrible state. But I'm not going to get in a terrible state. Okay? So now we've all worked at making things important. And a few of us have taken a little time not to make things important and have greatly profited by it. So would we like to have a good discussion on making of things important and how to make it not important, okay? Let's do that. How'd you do it?
Well, one time I took a break. I decided the rest of the day I wasn't going to worry about a certain situation or make it important. I was going to not make it important and keep my mood up. And it was wonderful.
It was wonderful.
So the next day
when I missed the mark, you went back and made it all important again.
Yeah.
Then it was terrible, huh?
But it works when I would do it. It really
well,
works.
That's right. Anything works when you do it, but just to know about it doesn't make it work. You see, you have to do it. So you said, so what? I'm not going to fret over that today. And you turned it loose down here. And you felt wonderful. Got your mood up a little bit. You're doing fine. You see, I'm always thinking how we can make all the teaching material very simple. More simple than we are presenting it. So I come up a few weeks ago with the idea that I could put all the teaching in one sentence. One sentence. I said, don't make anything important and keep your mood up. That's the whole bit. Now, if you can do that, you've got all of it. You don't need to sit around here anymore. Okay? Can you do that? Don't make anything important and keep your mood up. Huh? If you're going out in a little while to do your number, you want to keep your mood up while you're there. Is that right? And if you don't make it important to keep your mood up, you'll do fantastic well.
If I don't make it important to keep my mood up?
Just keep it up. Okay, don't make it important. Just play with it, okay? And you don't make anything important. You just go out to the garden party and have a ball. Okay? then everything will work wonderful, and you're living the teaching. So, how many can do that? Don't make anything important and keep your mood up. Can you do that? You got your hand up saying you can, or you're asking a question?
Well, I can, and I have a question. No, I have a statement, not a question. It's an observation.
Okay.
In the important thing, when I thought that what I had be most important was myself.
Yeah.
The self-importance. And when I really looked at that, of how important I was.
Yeah.
And then when I saw what the payoff of that was, that I didn't like the payoff.
Okay.
So it somehow, when I see that I'm being self-important again, there is some humor about it.
Right.
Life is just a lot easier when I'm not important.
Right. And when you're just a big joke.
Right.
Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, now we got to start it down. Let's have some more comments, questions, and stuff about making things important. Yes?
In the man-made world, people frequently confuse making things important as being motivated. Because if you want to get something done, you've got to put some energy in.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be motivated to do it. Say start a business as a support.
Yeah.
And they therefore soon make starting a business important.
That's right.
Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, they make it important, and they have all kinds of problems, and they have to hire outside consultants, and they have to go through long dry spells and everything. Where if they kept on making it interesting, because you see, interest is the big motivator, not have to. You see, if I tell myself I have to do something, I blow my back right now, don't you? Huh? That's not a motivator. But now, if I'm really interested in something, I can't wait in the morning to get up and get at it, right? That's the motivation, is when it's not important. When it is interesting and so forth, that is the big motivator, where most of them think of it as motivated, I have to. Now, I tell people don't ever do anything that you have to. They think I'm putting them down, but I'm not. I'm telling them how to find something they're truly interested in and get with it. And that is where the motivation power is, that the person is truly interested. A real motivator makes things interesting and gets people interested in it rather than telling them they have to.
Can one have strong desire without it being important?
Oh, yes, I think you can have a strong desire because you're very interested. If I'm real interested in the project, I can't wake up in the morning when I get up to go get with it. I have a strong desire to go do it.
It's not important.
No, it's not important, but man, is it interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I make it important not to have stress, which makes it like that.
That makes you very stressed out. So that gets you stressed up all out of day. So you better just sit down and say, well, this is an interesting thing to work on. Okay? And if it's not interesting, for goodness sakes, don't do it. Okay? Because things you're not interested in, you have no motivation, you are really pushing yourself to do it. Yes, sir.
Is there a difference between importance and value? Is it valuable to you to do something?
All of value is, it's valuable to me, but not to anybody else, probably. But I wouldn't put that value too much on there because you'll have to make it. Why don't you say it's just interesting, okay?
Okay.
It's kind of interesting to see what happens. It's interesting to see if you find a ball laying about 18 foot from a hole and you can put it in there in one putt. And it's kind of interesting.
That's the easy part. That's the easy part.
Yeah, that's easy to you because you don't make it important.
Right.
But if you see the ball 60 yards from the hole, oh man, now you make it important. Is that right?
Right.
And which one goes astray?
The 60-yard one.
So I think you can see that. Okay? Okay, ma'am?
Seems like I can say, well, this is not important.
Well,
Then
you
a
can say
little now, I'll jump up and say, but this really doesn't matter. And then I slide, and I fall asleep again because I think there's a lot I can do.
Uh-huh.
So I don't want to fall asleep, but I have to be careful, or I take not making something important the same as
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So you say, but I'm very interested in what you don't make it. Now it'll matter a little bit if you get interested, okay? That works for you, I think. Okay, but this is not important, but it sure is interesting to me. Okay?
So that takes the anxiety out. The importance has anxiety.
Yeah, importance makes great jobs of anxiety. Being interested doesn't. Okay? So, I was said on the basic decisions we were talking about this morning, that is important in the original making. I said we'd make them without that now. So, I like to have my way. But I don't have to have it right now. I can wait for all day to get it. I'll get it. If you like some shit. I'll get it. Okay? It's not important. I'll get it because it's interesting to me. And same way that it's important to please them. I don't think it's important. But it's interesting to please people. And I do it to see how flexible they are when I please them. Right? Okay? Let's run around some more out here. Get all this done.
If you are around another person and they're making something very important and you're believing this is important, and I'm in their company,
I laugh.
you always laugh at that. I know I'm going to get punched out if I do that.
Well, you're making getting punched down important.
You're right.
You don't know that you will get punched out. You just assume that. And if you sit there and smile at them, they don't know what you're smiling about. They think you're agreeing with them. But whatever it is, you're smiling while they're doing it. Pretty soon it's contagious. They start smiling, and now they've forgotten all about it. Okay? That's what really happens. It's not that they've punch you out. It's contagious. The smile is contagious. They all pick it up. Okay? Try it and see. You'll probably meet somebody that's real anxious to work with.
Oh, Dr. Bob, I knew you'd do that to me.
So it's something really interesting about it, okay?
There's going to be somebody that's going to make it important and I'm going to smile.
Oh, sure, just smile and go on. Laugh around inside. And pretty soon they will be agreeing with you. Smile, okay? All right? We got that taken care of. We got some more questions and comments on it. Yes.
Some of my contemporaries are making it very important to remember that their memories are good. Does this impair their ability to remember things?
You were saying what now, that some of the folks around you, that it's important to you to remember?
To remember, because they're afraid if they're not remembering that, then it's signs of aging, which they don't want to age, and that this making this important
so they make it important, that's a good way to age.
And impair their memory.
Yeah, that's a good way to age, is to keep it all important. So tell them to forget about it. That their memory is absolutely great for what they need, okay? Really don't have to need an awful lot. I heard a story about a guy who had everything, he remembered everything. Remembered he had a lovely young wife at home, he was an old guy. He remembered that they had 2 lovely children. He remembered that he had more than adequate savings lined up to take care of them for all their life and their own. Okay. He remembered everything. And finally the guy said, well, what are you so miserable about? And the guy said, well, look, I've forgotten where I live. Well, might as well not have the beautiful young girl, the money or anything else. He forgot where he lived. That's the only thing he forgot. Okay. That's all. That was enough, wasn't it?
Well, when Marx was talking about other people making things important, sometimes Bob will say something is important, and I'll say, well, it really isn't that important. We don't have to be concerned about that. And he will get so involved. How can you say that? This is important. How can you just do that?
Right. You say, my man, you keep on making it important. Because it probably is to you, but it's not to me. See, you don't want to start an argument over these things. You keep it to yourself. I don't argue with people if they come up and want to talk about universal mind. I really don't bother me a whit, does it you? But you got to make everybody agree with you. You're in trouble because you got made it important for them to agree with you. Yes, ma'am. Sir, excuse me. I can't see if they have back there. You're sitting in the light.
Like you have something you want to do, like she was talking about something. Well, that's important. And would it be to say, well, it's not that it's important. It might be valuable to do. You might,
Maybe interesting.
Maybe interesting or valuable, but not important.
It's not important. I don't need to know that much value on that. Just say it.
Like if you were going to.
Maybe very interesting.
If you're doing a project that you were going to gain some money off of.
Yeah.
And you go, this is so important, you start sweating. But instead of saying, oh, this is so important, you go, well, it's valuable,
It's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, how about just plain old interest? That's what motivates people, is interest to do things. If you're interested in doing something, don't you hurry up and go do it? And you're not making it important. It's just very interesting, and interest is what gets you in motion.
Bob, I don't know anything about universal mind, but I've heard it said that all the ideas and principles have been available to man, like discovering the wheel, discovering fire, discovering the principles of mathematics. Where then is that information coming from or stored?
I don't know where it's stored or not. It's just available for use when you want to. Probably intuition.
Intuition in individual
forms. Yeah. Some individual, I don't know where anybody invented fire down there.
Well, like principles of mathematics.
Principles of mathematics.
2 plus 2
somebody
is always
just
4.
discovered those, but coming up on them. They didn't have to learn them from somebody else because the first guy didn't have to learn them.
I know, so I have trouble with where they came from.
They really didn't come from anywhere. They're just here. Somebody stumbles onto them, okay? And they usually by degrees. They probably didn't start off with the top line stuff. They started with smaller stuff and it worked up to it. But all knowledge is supposed to be available to us if we can be awake enough to see it. I think the principle is that you have to be awake to see a principle. Okay? A little more awake than you were yesterday when you didn't see it. And that's what everybody's working on.
And this is available to everyone if they're awake
if
and
they're
ask.
awake enough to see it, that's right. They see things that nobody else seen before. That's that artist level of consciousness there. So every once in a while somebody comes into it, or there is a cosmic need and they do it anyway, okay? Okay. Other question? Comment? Yeah.
I've observed when I make something important, I'm setting up an ideal.
Mm-hmm. You set it up that you know what ought to be.
Yeah.
And you find yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. Either immediately or a week later you find out you're in trouble. But then you can do something about it, okay? So it's a phase to pay attention to these things as we go along, okay? Yes, sir.
Is this interesting a tie-in directly to vital interest?
Yes. I could have said vital interest. I just said interest. When you're vitally interested in something, you can't wait to get to go and do it. Is that right? And that's when you're motivated to expend wonderful energy and get things done. Okay? Okay, we'll take about a 10-minute break and we'll start again. Over something. If somebody wants to tell me something to talk about, I'll talk about it. Okay, we'll take some drinks next, okay? Faith and grace. Faith and grace. Asked today to talk on faith and grace. So, I'll talk what I know, and we'll quit, okay? Faith is the ability to make up one's mind singly. Faith is the ability to make up one's mind singly. Now, if you say 1 minute I'm going to do so-and-so, the next minute I'm going to do something else, the next minute I've got to do this first, and then I've got to do that, you can't make up your mind singly. So when you can make up your mind singly, whatever you made it up about will happen. Here. Sure, simple.
Well, it could be 3 years. It only took me 3 years to make up my mind.
It'll happen. But once you make it up, it's 15 years. Being value to it. And grace is receiving undeserved goods or unearned goods. Good meaning anything that you want.
Grace is unearned goods?
Unearned good. Our good statements. Okay? So, faith is something you can work to have to build faith. You can keep on practicing making up your mind singly. Now, you can make up your mind about something very simple. I'm going to move these chairs out of the living room tomorrow. Make it up singly, it'll be moved out tomorrow. You can make it over something very valuable or useful or anything you wanted to. You could say that you were going to create world peace between countries. Take you a little bit, it'll get done if you singly make up your mind with that. But the point is, can you make up your mind singly, or do you get too much interference? The point is, if you can really make up your mind singly to that, you'll see world peace happen for a while. So it doesn't matter the scope of the thing or the size of it, it is your ability to make up your mind singly about the subject at hand. That is faith. Great teachings have always said to develop your faith, increase your faith, which means to keep making it on bigger and bigger things. Your ability to make up your mind singly. Now we will consider grace for a minute. Grace is receiving undeserved or unearned things that's worthwhile. So where it comes from, nobody seems to know, but if we stop to look at most of the things that we have, we'll have to say we are the recipients of much grace. All right? We didn't earn it. We didn't make it. We received it from some reason or other, whether from a loving spirit or what, we don't know, but whatever it is undeserved good. It's well worthwhile if we pay attention to those and be a little thankful for them now and then. Pretty worthwhile. Okay? Undeserved things or circumstances which we didn't really earn. Anyway, so I think that then instead of counting your blessings, if you counted your signs of grace, you would be doing pretty well. I think that'd be worthwhile. You know, instead of thinking, oh, well, I got cheated here, when you can see how much grace you had. And you might feel a lot better. It's immaterial. But at any rate, it is to increase your degree of thankfulness, apparently is the reason for grace being extended to us. Okay? And faith is something you can generate by slowly increasing the making up of your mind singly from simple little things to the very big ones if you want to put back in something. Okay? So what do you make up your mind about?
Well, I'd like to see peace on our job.
Okay. Then why not make up your mind that it will be that way? Maybe you can do it all at once, or maybe you can take a little time, but you can get your mind made up. So you can do that, okay? And you certainly would contribute to the agitation if it should occur. Okay? Speak. Yes, ma'am.
What gets in the way of making up the mind? Is it that level that
Oh,
logic?
there is a lot of things that gets in the way of making up the mind. One is suggestion. One is the sense of limitation. One is the sense we've been told you can't do that. You mustn't do that. You can't do it. And who do you think you are? All that good stuff. All those get in the way.
So you try to be using the intuitive mind.
As much as possible to make up your mind. And it works real well. To get your mind quiet, then you can make it up. So if you try to make your mind up out of an agitated state, of course, it's very difficult. But if you get the mind quiet, then it's easier to make up your mind. Sing it. Okay? Okay, now we've talked about faith and grace for a minute. Let's have some comments and questions and what have you on it. So we got a round table discussion here. It's not round, but we like like this. Okay?
On one of the 48 tapes, you talk about faith and grace, and my recollection of the gist of what you're saying is that we can have the other spiritual experiences,
right,
but that there is a difference required before we can have faith and grace. And I believe you say something about renouncing is the key here.
Renouncing all doubt.
Now that sounds a little different to me than what you just said here.
Okay. Okay. Probably it's different. Same, I think if you did it. Comes out a little different.
In the case here, you're telling us that there's some things we can do. We can practice having faith.
That's right.
And we can be more grateful so that grace is more likely to be available.
Or have to be around.
But in the other, it sounds like you have to do something specific, which is get rid of something, renounce.
Well, we'll leave that one for what it is. You read the tape, this one's true, and the line on the tape probably true too if we let them. Okay?
Okay.
I think they're both pretty good. This is accurate for now. Okay? Okay, next comment, question? Yes, sir.
Is it grace to get loaded up with suggestions in one's life?
Is it grace? No, I think that'd be anti-grace. Loaded with them. I think that would be unnecessary, okay? So if we're loaded with them, I think it'd be grace if you suddenly got rid of them all without effort on your part, okay?
Would faith be involved in healing?
Oh, yeah. Very different. You gotta make up your mind with first and final. And you can't let anything stand in the way. It's sometimes when the healer doesn't want to see the person because it'd be harder to make up his mind. The person needs to be practiced. So he just sits there fine. So he's helped himself. So that's it.
When he was in the hospital, I wouldn't go see him because I wanted to make up my mind. I didn't want to see what he looked like.
Nope. That's correct. Okay. Other comment? Yes.
If there were just one or two or a few things that you'd like us to remember from what you said today,
From what?
from what we've heard today, would it be not make things important? Or?
Couldn't make anything important. No.
What would you hope that we take away with us? Not
I hope you remember all of it, but I wouldn't make it important. Interesting to remember and put into use, but it's not important. Yes?
Well, I don't know exactly how to answer this question.
All right.
But there's something
Give it a stab.
going around. Like when we were talking before about where ideas or principles of, say, mathematics or science or where they come from, it sounds like I get a feeling then after you answered me that it is taking away from the idea that there is something outside of us. Does that make any sense?
I don't think there's anything outside you.
I know. In other words, you're saying we shouldn't be looking for something
Outside,
coming from
like,
somewhere else. It's coming from
That's
within.
like Somebody said life or human life didn't originate on the Earth; it came from another planet. Okay, all he did was back it off one more notch, and he still left the same problem. How did it originate there? What's the difference? So I just say, well, we'll work on it from here, and I think you'll find it all works well if you see that spirit is within you. It has to be treated as though it's something outside you, but it's within you.
It has to be treated as if it's something
Outside.
outside you. I don't understand.
But you treat it as though you talk to it and accept it as though it's an outsider, but it's really you. Okay. But it's on a different level than that you usually function.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you talk to it. Yeah.
Bob, you combine the faith action and think, act, feel after that. Is it the thing you are applying your mind singly to is so?
Yeah, you put it that way.
Well, is that right now? I just want to
Yeah, sure. Sure, friend. So when you act upon it, you're acting so it's real. Okay? Yes?
Earlier you said you can get with something.
In other words, you can have your way, if you want to put it, as long as you're a little patient. How's that? I don't like to use that word, but I used it then because that seemed the appropriate one, the only one I could think of. Okay? Okay? Other comment, question?
A lot of times my way is not for my advantage.
Well, that's all right, you did it anyway. That's what you
Then I
want.
think it'd be better to back off and say, I don't know.
Well, that's all right. On some cases, you would say, I don't know what I want, so I don't want anything right now.
That's right.
Until you said, but if you really want something, and whether it's to your advantage or not, I don't care. You get it. You go after it, okay? Yes, I think most of us would be better off if we didn't ask for anything, but we don't know the outcome. But we think we do. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Would you comment on responsibility?
Responsibility. I am responsible for me. I'm responsible to eat, drink, etc. as long as I can. You can't drink for me. You can't eat for me. Or anything else for me. Is that right? I am not responsible for you or anybody else. I may have a duty to you. I may see that you're provided with food, clothing, and shelter. Transportation is a duty. But one day I may want to lay that duty down, so I'll say I can lay it down. But I can never lay down the responsibility for me. So I'm free to do whatever I want to do as long as I'm free to accept the responsibility for my actions. Okay?
Is it not? To me, it symbolizes a sense of freedom to be responsible.
That's correct. It is freedom because I'm taking care of me. That's right. But I'm not taking care of anybody else unless on a sense of duty, and I can take care of that. I can lay that down whenever I want to. But I would consider what the consequences were that I'm responsible to do before I lay down or pick up our duty. Okay?
Yes.
That's free to pick them up. Okay? Another comment, question, etc., etc., etc. Okay? We got one more here. One more. Yes.
Done anything, Bob?
Huh?
Are you open to anything now, or just?
Yeah, I'm open to anything. Come on.
Okay, could you comment on will and purpose as existing side by side with passive awareness?
Okay, will and purpose. Will is what you decide to do, and the purpose is what you decide to do it for. Is that all right? Purpose is what you do it for. Will is what you decide to do. If you make up your mind saying let's do something, you will do it. Okay. If you go at it, well, I don't know whether I should or I won't, then you're in conflict over it, and nothing will happen until you get out of conflict.
Will can operate without defined purpose?
Huh?
Can will operate without a defined purpose?
No, I can see that it does. That's
But before you finish, could you comment on that? If one is in a state of passive awareness, is will and purpose still there?
If it's in what
Passive
kind of
awareness. Passive awareness. When the awareness is passive.
Passive.
You've mentioned X taking the initiative. Can
Well,
will still be there in
I wouldn't
purpose?
think there'd be any when they were passive.
Pardon?
I wouldn't think there'd be any will or purpose if it's truly passive. You're open to whatever happens. You have no will about it. Don't work on the purpose. You just let it happen whenever it does, which is fine. Okay. Okay.
Regarding faith, just from my understanding, does that mean everything we see, like say someone puts up a new building, everything we see that man has made in this world is the outcome of his faith?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Maybe it's determination. He may be miserable about it, but he put the building up there. Okay. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So he may be very miserable, but he put the building up. He said he put it up in spite of whatever somebody wanted. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's the way that works. We said that we didn't ask anybody to do anything they don't want to do because that's greatly depleting your energy. It is wonderful to do what you really want to do because that enhances your energy level a bit. You build it because you want to do something. You accumulate energy. But when you say, I have to, you deplete it. Now, I think if you listen to yourself and others, you will find that you're saying, I have to, and you're hearing others say, I have to, about a great job of things that they don't have to or you don't have to. You might, for instance, say, I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I have to take a shower. I have to get my breakfast. I have to drive to work. I have to check in at a certain time. And then I have to do this kind of work all day. Whatever it may be. Okay? I have to do that all day. Then in the afternoon, I have to go home. I have to get a drink before I go. I have to go home. I have to eat dinner. I have to get ready for bed. I have to go to bed. And it starts over in the morning. I have to get up. And this person is totally devoid of energy. You want to watch them, you'll see they just barely can keep along because they're so tired. They have burned up their energy 6 times through the day and borrowed from next week. So I would suggest that you listen to things and you see if you want to say, I'm doing so-and-so today. I'm getting up this morning. I'm having some coffee. I'm having some breakfast. I'm going to drive to work. I'm going into work this morning. I'm going to take care of my duties today at work. They don't say they have to go to lunch. Say, I'm going out to lunch. You want to go with me? I want to go back to work. Work the afternoon, taking off. I'm going home. I'm going to stop and get a drink. Not changing anything except their way of looking at it. The way of looking at it in most people is, I have to. And that depletes their energy. The person's doing it because they really want to, not just doing it because it's there to do. Then you generate a bit of energy, and when the two people are 65 years old, one of them looks like a wreck if he's still around, and the other one is going strong. So I think it would behoove us to watch our language a wee bit and not use these I have to's. I must. Because it's totally unnecessary, it's untrue, but the mind accepts it as being true, and you're greatly depleted. Okay? Everybody hear that one all right? Yes?
So you could say, I get to do this.
But you can say, I get to do it if you want to. You can just say you're doing it. But you're getting to do it is wonderful. You're getting to drive the car now, and you're getting to go do this, do that. We're used to, you get to do that. Okay, yeah, it's wonderful to say, I'm getting to do it. But sometimes it sounds a little Pollyannish. So I'm doing it, okay? Listen.
I'm back on the question of, I was asked about building the building, and you said determination rather than faith.
Determination.
I don't see the difference
Okay.
between having made up your mind singularly and having determination.
Okay.
And I don't see why making up the mind singularly means that you're precluded from being miserable about it.
Well, if you make up your mind freely, without due rest and not having to, or etc., you won't be under any stress. And I said pure guts and determination. Maybe somebody told him he couldn't build a building there, and he's going to build it to show them. I don't think it's always pure faith that he built the building. I think it sometimes is pure honor.
The definition of faith was making up your mind singularly.
That's right.
So he made up his mind singularly because he was honored, but I mean,
He may have made up his mind singly, and he may have not even made up his mind except that there is revenge on somebody. Okay. But you can have it that way if you want it, okay? I won't argue with it. But I do think it's a little bit different. Okay? Any more questions here? Yes, ma'am.
Do you find that if you get a taste of gratitude, it tends to make it, I found that when I experience a little bit of gratitude, it makes it more valuable to me to drop the negative emotions.
That's correct. Emotions, anger, guilt, fear, and insecurity, they're not valuable at all.
Yeah.
But the feeling of gratitude is very valuable. And a little of it goes a long way. Right? Okay. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Would you comment on competitiveness and why the male of the species tend to be more competitive?
I don't know that they are. I mean, there's a female. I wouldn't buy that if I was asked to buy something.
Okay.
I wouldn't buy that one. Because I've noticed females are competitive too. Okay?
Well,
of the human species.
Right. Okay. What I notice when I play bridge, when a couple comes along and they have this attitude, you know they're going to win. It's probably the man.
Okay. Let's just watch it all, and I think you'll see girls are just as competitive as the males are in the long run, okay? Maybe not in the bridge game, I don't know, I never played bridge, but possibly, okay? Maybe they're more competitive.
Women have been forced to hide their competitiveness.
Certain amount of it, but they're still competitive.
Oh yeah, they're still competitive. You have to hide it.
Yeah. Okay, yes sir.
In the 48-week tapes, in the first tape, you say if you work with these ideas, there's a suggestion that there's a possibility of a, you say, complete transformation of being. Could you comment what you mean by that?
I think if they work with them, that there is a complete transformation of the person, and they're really interested in it and do it. Not everybody can do it, but there is a possibility of complete transformation mentally, physically, and spiritually. Okay?
For some of us, when we come to hear these diagrams, it seems like the transformation consists in going from the conditioned diagram of man to the unconditioned diagram of man. Is that what you're referring to?
Partially.
And yet, you seem to indicate that the conditioned diagram remains, but you have reconsidered it,
reevaluated it, which is quite different.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, that's a big transformation. And the person, physically, there's a big transformation. The person ceases aging, or decidedly slows it down, begins to be well-functioning instead of miserable and so forth. And spiritually, he is transformed in that he is comprehensive far more of reality. He can be quiet. He doesn't be competitive with anybody or anything. Because a total transformation is possible. I didn't say it would happen. I said it's possible.
In the sense that there are no more not eyes to be reevaluated. Is that what you're saying?
Not eyes are taken care of, and they're not in conflict. All basic decisions, while they've been modified because they were looked at in the light and reevaluated in light of experience, they're not used at the same time. So I'm not going to try to have my way pretty soon and please everybody by going into slavish pleasing is doing everything they ask for. I said I would treat everybody with simple goodness. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Is this the case when you are using in the V diagram, instead of the 6 decisions, you are using the small x? If you recall.
Yeah, I use awareness, which is small x, let's put it there. But it has been reevaluated, the content has been reevaluated in the light of reason and experience, so that there is not an absolute statement, I'm going to have my way right now. That's a little fuzzy. And on the other side, it's important to please them, which means that no matter what they want, we'll give it to them, and then I'm wanting my way, and that's big conflict. So conflict is not necessary. Yes?
The statement in the tapes, which I found so interesting, was that we are a function of X.
That's correct.
And in looking at that close, it somewhat takes the self-importance away. And how can a function be important? And in looking at that, how can we ever use X? Wouldn't it be that as a function we are the used?
Yeah, that's correct. And we can also go the other way, and we can say we want it to all fit together. So you say what? X takes care of the how, which is about the same statement again, but X is using you to state the how, or the what. It'll take care of the how. Okay?
And yes, X uses this to state the what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right. So, wonderful. Don't make anything important and keep your mood up.
Yeah.
That's what counts, okay? Okay, any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Drayton and I had a conversation when he's on the golf tour. He's in competition to win. And he said sometimes he has a conflict because he cares about the other players. And, you know, it's a conflict caring about them and also trying to win.
Oh, yeah, I know. He can build up a big conflict all he wants to. He can quit, too. He can just look at the ball and see where he wants it to go, and expect the other guys to do likewise. No, you don't have to worry about that. Okay? Yes, lady, go ahead.
You made the comment, rather than to see how I was cheated or we were cheated, to see how much grace I have been given in that situation and in my whole life.
That's right.
And that's just a nod eye that it's just a nod eye viewing that I've been cheated. That's just a nod eye. It's just an illusion.
Oh, yeah. Take a look. You didn't have it in the first place, did you?
Just report and then.
I said you didn't have it in the first place, did you?
Okay, no.
Oh, there.
In the past, you made one diagram that you connected different V's.
Yes.
And one of the V's didn't have the bottom corner, which means it didn't have a physical body.
Uh-huh. That's right. We do come all together.
What happens to that part of the V that it is there? What is it, or does it function, or?
It doesn't do anything. It's just another thing that maybe will have potential of existence someday. Okay? Maybe
No,
it has
would you like to comment more?
Huh? You're talking about, and I drew a whole bunch of
V's, right? Right.
like that.
And one of them didn't have the bottom part, which was, he didn't have a physical body.
That's right. So then these are left off, didn't have a physical body.
Right.
So they got X and awareness, X and awareness,
Right.
X and awareness. Maybe one day they'll get a physical body, and then they'll be for real. Okay?
From where they're going to get the physical body?
Somebody will furnish it. Don't worry. Somebody will furnish it. Don't worry.
I came all the way from St. Peter. I said, this time I'm going to get
Somebody will provide them with a physical body. Some soul will
Are
provide
you
them with a
saying that there
little
is
body.
somebody else besides us, or?
Oh yeah, they've got people besides us that you can't see.
Oh, would you like to comment more about it?
Okay, so, dear people, we've been around and had a lovely day, or I have. I hope you have. And I will see you somewhere along the way. Thank you for having me here. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.